Intel, and AMD here, where these numbers, when you analyze them and couple in the fact that you had a 9.1% inflation figure, it really didn't bode that well for the whole tech industry. So let's take a look at these numbers. I'll just hopefully this live stream is working properly. I did think I configured it. Hopefully I configured it. I've got to check if I configured it. But let me know, guys, when you jump in chat. Let me know what's crack-a-lackin' and what is poppin'. Because usually people jump in by this time. Okay. Go live. Hello, YouTube studio. Okay, it's working. Okay, it's all working now. Sorry, I've got to go to the live. I did kind of mess one. I thought I had the live control room up. Yes, we got the live control room up. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. You guys are tuning on in, coming on in. It's all working, cracking and popple-upping. Okay, let's get back to it. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, and we're going to go straight over now to these numbers, where we're going to paint these numbers right in front of you, because I was thinking I'll do a dedicated video for this, but it's actually quite a lengthy process, so we can all join in and have some fun here while we all talk about what's going on. And so we're going to straight away start off with the juiciest numbers, and that is NVIDIA's numbers here. So this is what we're looking at. They expected 8.1 billion to come out. And sorry, you'll have to excuse my poor paint shop skills. We're off to a pretty rough start already. Okay, so here it is here. 8.1 billion is what NVIDIA expected, and they came up with 6.7 billion. So in other words, a massive drop from what they initially expected. But if we start to look at these numbers now from the previous year, right, the year-over-year numbers, where they sort of change up their Q2 results, especially if you compare them to last year, where they kind of didn't focus on the year-on-year numbers this time around. They kind of like, okay, guys, here's what we got and here's what happened. But then when you look at these numbers, you look how bad they are. So, okay, I got this new app as well. It's like Paint. Okay, hold on. The live stream is off to a bad start already. So here it is here. The down 33%. We're going to focus on this number because it's huge, right? What this means is we've got, right now, we're looking at analyzing NVIDIA's gaming numbers. Sorry, I've never analyzed Q2 results on a live stream before, and with a paint shop overlay, so we'll have to get comfortable. We'll have to get comfortable looking at this stuff first. So let's go here. Gaming numbers, right? This was the biggest one that was down. We're not going to so much focus on the data center numbers, because these numbers right here, the data center numbers indicate that yes, they had a good quarter compared to last year, but when we look at the data center numbers, I believe they're going to be a delayed response, in that things were picking up last year. Businesses were doing so well last year, especially tech companies, right? But then what happened after that was all these companies had booked a lot of stuff from especially AMD and NVIDIA. And I believe next year you're going to see the data center numbers actually on the decline, because when the average consumer is essentially going broke due to inflation and 9.1% inflation figures, when you're seeing that, that's going to flow through the economy, where all these companies, basically what happens with data center, one of the biggest things is data mining. And I found this out when we were at the line headquarters in South Korea when I went on a trip there. These guys are just every day, every time you pick up your phone, every time you do something on the internet, it's basically they're data mining you and then running all that and collecting data and selling it to advertising agencies who then target specific groups, and they're trying to home in on the skills. But they need, of course, raw computing power for that. And so that's why that's on the up and up. But as we've said before, just recently, once that's on the down, you're going to start seeing that these numbers will follow the general economy, where we're going to look at these gaming numbers, 2.04 billion with NVIDIA. So, okay, that doesn't like that. So we'll zoom in a little bit with our little on paint shop here. And NVIDIA was down 33%, but this isn't even factoring in inflation, right? So this number here was down from 3 billion, right? So it went down from 3 all the way down to 2 billion. That's what we're looking at right there, 2 bill. That's a huge drop. If you're looking in 1 year from this previous time last year, that's a huge drop. Now we're factoring in the 9.1% inflation, right? 9.1% inflation. And this is where Nvidia's numbers drop down to, I did a heap of brainstorming here before we did the live stream. So I wanted to analyze these numbers and give you guys some of the best results here. And what we saw here was really in total, it went down actually 39.1% if we factor in inflation year over year. So this time versus last year, we had a drop for Nvidia of 39.1%, not 33%, because we're factoring in that inflation. That's a number that's there. Basically, that's the devaluation of your money. And so you can see how poorly Nvidia did. Now, they sort of say that they're blaming it on, macroeconomic conditions. Now, if we look through Nvidia's Q2, Intel's Q2 results, AMD's Q2 results, they've got like a lot of half-truths in all these, but I believe that overall Intel sort of had to admit the truth. Intel's like, look guys, macroeconomic conditions are terrible, inflation numbers are bad, these have really hit our underlying business. AMD on the other hand, we'll get onto AMD a little bit later, they've kind of cannibalized off NVIDIA and AMD. Off NVIDIA and Intel. So they've kind of cannibalized a lot of market share from them. But in general, we're going to get to this whole figure of how the whole gaming sector, I believe, is down roughly around 24.1%. So it's a huge drop when we factor in that inflation. So let's keep moving on with these numbers where NVIDIA is down 39.1% year over year. Now, we're not going to look at so much the quarter over quarter here. This quarter over quarter, people will say, oh, okay, it's down 44%. But there are seasonal changes. Things can happen from season to season. I mean, usually it's not this big, but it does show you that they had a massive layoff in cryptocurrency miners buying up their GPUs. And we've been saying this all along. Like I was saying this last year, crypto miners were buying up the majority of these GPUs. There was nothing that would explain someone wanting to buy a graphics card, especially a 3080, for example, for $2,000 US. Every time someone came over to my place to buy a PC, I'd talk to them, okay, what do you want to do? I want to play this game. I want to play Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And then I'd be like, well, you kind of might want a better graphics card. And they're like, oh, how much is that? I'd tell them, okay, you can get, say, a 3080 for $2,000. They're just automatically like, no, I'm happy with this. I'll see you later, mate. And so that was the general reaction I got pretty much all the time. People were sort of not into even entertaining the idea of buying these graphics cards if you're a gamer at these higher prices. So let's move on now to, so NVIDIA had a terrible quarter. They were down. Their data center numbers, however, look, when we look at these data center numbers, they were up big time. And so that was their saving grace. That was why they didn't do as bad as Intel on the report card. When we look at NVIDIA's numbers on the report card for the data center, they were up huge, up 61% year over year. And that was sort of like their saving grace. If we look at these numbers here, where that went from from 2.35 billion up to 3.8 billion. However, again, factoring in inflation, these numbers aren't as big as they seem. So once you factor in that 9.1% inflation number, it really isn't as big as this 3.8, right? We're down, roughly going down to around 3.55. So there's the real numbers that you got to look at. And no one's talking about this really. NVIDIA sort of doesn't even mention in these inflation numbers. They just ignore them. So 3.55 from 2.35. Then we move on to going over to the quarter numbers here. This is one thing that is the biggest, should be the biggest shock. That should tell you that these companies are doing pretty bad in general. And that is the margins on NVIDIA and Intel. Actually, I've never seen margins this low for both these companies, where if we have a look, NVIDIA's margins went from 65% down to 43%. Now we're going to look at the GAAP numbers as well, the GAAP versus the non-GAAP numbers, because GAAP numbers are generally what's on the balance sheet, right? This is what's been reported. You have to write down these costs. Like, for instance, AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, they'll say, guys, you know, we're going to look at the non-GAAP numbers because we had these one-off legal charges, we had this expense, we had that expense, we perhaps had to throw a heap of parties for some streamers, and influencers and whatnot, so the bills were running up. We don't have to do that kind of stuff. It's not part of our usual business. So we do want to look more at these GAAP numbers actually, because that's business, right? You can't sort of, for me, that's business 101. I'd rather look at the GAAP numbers than the non-GAAP numbers. So their margins are down big time. So NVIDIA is having a very rough time as a company from quarter to quarter. Now, is it going to pick up for NVIDIA? Everyone's like, it's going to pick up straight away. Well, the printers are turned off. So the money printers are turned off. The inflation numbers are bad. And the interest rates are on the way up. Interest rates are on the way up. So the customers getting squeezed. They were getting squeezed from the start of the year. However, it's really starting to take a turn for the worst. And these numbers via NVIDIA's Q2 results do show just that. So overall, even when we factor in the fact that the gaming numbers are down, the data center numbers are up, I believe NVIDIA overall is still down 12.8% inflation adjusted. This was the numbers that I calculated. Inflation adjusted, they are down 12.8%. So not a place that you really want to be in as a business, especially when you're a growth company leading the charge. So now we're going to move on to Intel, which is probably, actually, it's definitely the worst of all of them. Intel definitely had the worst numbers where their whole business just declined. They're like, look guys, everything here just declined a massive amount. Everything went down 22%. Now that's not even, they're not even factoring in inflation, right? Because when we're doing the comparison, we want to compare the inflation adjusted numbers to show you the real drop and what happened down at good old Intel. So there it is there. They sort of, okay, this add-on is, I should have probably trialed this add-on before I did it. Sort of playing some funny buggers on me here. Come on, paint shop add-on. Work for me, please. Okay, should be, yeah, we got to scroll down to the juicy stuff. This is what I wanted to get to. So what we'll look at first is Intel's like, okay, here it is here. Intel made significant progress during the quarter to ramp up Intel 7. Now, the reason these numbers from Intel worry me the most is that Intel actually had a really good release with Alder Lake. And so that wasn't factored into Q2 2021. We didn't see Alder Lake. We saw it after that. And so even with them being essentially the leader on desktop and now having sort of the lead over AMD, they had a massive drop-off in that time period. So that was kind of concerning. The main juice to take out of the Intel Q2 result is that in general, the industry is looking really bad. But I do want to move over now to, let's go deeper into these numbers of Intel, where it says here, we're going to look again at the GAAP numbers. We're going to be looking at these numbers versus the non-GAAP. And here's where we got the revenue down, 22%, which is huge. But if we inflation adjust that number, they are down ultimately 29%. Overall, wait, did I get that right? Sorry guys, there's so many numbers here to look at. Okay, so we're gonna go over the core business. I'm like doing a presentation where, you know how if you've ever been to a university lecture and you're like, okay, what's this guy doing? I'm just having one of those days, one of those bad days. So bear with me, bear with me. We'll get to the juicy stuff. So Intel broke it down where they had their CCG, Client Center Group. And this is what includes desktop. This group here includes the desktop division, it includes the laptop division, but ultimately it's the gaming division. Now these numbers, when we look at these numbers from Intel, they were down really, they went down, they reported 22%. Hold on. This is what happens when you just jot down all your thoughts on a piece of paper. Tech Yes City live stream fails. Right here. Okay, so the desktop alone, this is what I've got. Once you adjust all the inflation adjusted figures, here it is here. Intel's numbers were down 25.3%. That's what we've got for Intel. So NVIDIA were down. They were down a massive 39.1%. Intel's whole gaming sector, which didn't even include anything to do with crypto miners, that was down 25.3%. So huge drawdown from Intel right there, where I believe their division that focuses on gaming directly went from 2.79 billion down to 2.29 billion, inflation adjusted. So now we got a donation. Thanks as well, man. Thanks. Cheers, Brian. Next coffee goes on me. First time I could catch you on a live stream. Thank you very much, my man. So let's get through these numbers and then we'll talk about what we've added up here in general overall. But Intel's, so this whole, sorry guys, I really didn't stress out this add-on first. It was really, I should just go through it all before we do. I really didn't stress test this add-on where, yeah, okay. Here it is here, the client, this is the one that we wanted to look at. That was down 25% versus the last year. And this is the one that we wanted to look at because I want to go through all this. Even though their data center numbers were down 16%, their core client computing group was down down 25%. So we've got this from 10.24 billion. We'll clean it up, make that big so we can just clean it up really quickly. This is where we wanted to find it. Finally, we got onto the juicy stuff. This is, again, the client computing group is the juicy stuff here. We went down from 10.24 billion down to 7.7 billion. However, that's not even in factoring in inflation, right? So this is where it gets scary for Intel, where it's down now to 6.99 billion. If we inflation adjust that number, that's down to 6.99 billion. So that's actually, as we said before, their numbers were dropping off 22% revenue. But when we look at the gaming division, this is what I wanted to get onto. Sorry. It was down 31.7%. That is a scary figure. It's kind of if you look at the these numbers that we looked at for Nvidia, that's down 39.1%, right, in their gaming division. So there it is there. Already down 31.7% inflation adjusted, 39.1% inflation adjusted. And so that's going through Intel and then going through AMD. Let's move on now to the juicy one, AMD, which I think people are going to say with AMD that they've done really well, right? They're up year over year, up 70%. So people are going to refer to AMD and go, guys, Brian, look, they just lost all that market share to AMD. Intel and NVIDIA had a bad quarter. They just lost it all to AMD. And here's where we're going to analyze these numbers right here with the 70% up year over year. And AMD, in my opinion, actually didn't do as well as this whole 70% figure. First reason, of course, is inflation, but let's get on to the next reason here. This 6.5 billion, actually, that came from 1.3 billion of that came from the acquisition of two businesses. AMD acquired Xilinx. I think it's Xilinx. They acquired Xilinx and another business, and that added essentially that onto the balance sheet with those acquisitions. Added it onto the revenue reporting. So that was, when we look at that, when we break that down, we're now down to essentially with AMD, we're now down to, say, we're in the 5 billion mark. We're down to 5.2 billion for what they actually grew in their remaining business from Q1 2021. But now we want to look at further, and I've got to get a hotkey to actually just reflash this too. So this will be the first time we're using the Paint Shop app on a live stream. I will refine. I probably should have done a run through with this before we did it. It is a bit buggy. But now that we're looking at 5.2 bill, this number here, we can cross that out when we're looking at the raw gaming numbers. We can see that they have grown, but it's not anywhere near 70% with the gaming numbers. And so even if we go down further here, we can see that they kind of allude to the fact that, okay, data center grew a heap. We acquired these new businesses, but further in these notes, they talk about the gaming graphics card numbers actually being down in this quarter. And so there's your embedded segment revenue there. So that's that 1.3 billion that we were talking about before. But the gaming revenue was 1.7 billion. So that was up 32% year over year. So that's what they're reporting there. You look at those numbers, you're probably thinking, wow, that's great. And then we've got the client segment revenue up 2.2 billion, 25% year over year. So we want to combine these two together because that's essentially your Ryzen PC sales, your graphics cards, your laptops, all that stuff is included in those two brackets. And so we'll get back to here. Now we'll just start crunching some juicy numbers for you guys that you can take home overall. And so we went from 1.76 billion in the gaming all the way up to 2.2 billion. And that was up 25%. And then we had the 1.29 billion, and that was up to 1.7, up 32%. So we're going to move on now from here and say, okay, this 3.05 billion, this is the gaming numbers, right? This went up to 3.9 billion. This is the big number that we're looking at. Huge number right here. It went up overall 27.9%. That's what their gaming numbers did, right? This is all the gaming division for AMD. So you could say that they cannibalized that from Intel, who had a terrible quarter, and same with NVIDIA, who had a terrible quarter. More so Intel in this case, because NVIDIA is more a graphics card company. But Ryzen did tremendously well. That's what you can look at from those numbers. But even then, we start to take that number, right? The 27.9%. Let's lay this out and inflation adjust that, where overall the whole business really did 16.26% better. So that's AMD's real numbers, inflation adjusted. So you're seeing that initial 70% number, and you're probably thinking, wow, AMD did so well. It's time to buy some more AMD stock. It's time to just rush out, guys. Get the AMD stock right now because these numbers are crack-a-lackin'. They're absolutely popping off. But when you look at it, 16.26%, Intel down 31.7%, NVIDIA down 39.1%. These are gaming numbers, right? And ultimately, I believe these three companies have had a massive push from gaming. Gaming's like their lifeblood. If it wasn't for the gamers or from the people using these computers, the average client, these companies wouldn't be anywhere near near where they would be in today's market. So let's take a look at that. 3.05 billion actually becomes 3.545 billion in real terms. And this is where the devil's in the details here, because a lot of these companies haven't had to deal with inflation. They haven't had to deal with a 9.1% inflation figure. When you've got to deal with that, it's huge. It disrupts business, and it makes the numbers definitely not look as good as they are when you start to account for this number, this 9.1% inflation figure. So overall now, we're going to go over to a blank piece of paper here, and we'll just go to Google because we want to paint. We'll just paint it on top here. We're just going to paint over Google here for taking these three industries together. And then we'll go over to chat, and then we'll talk about some of the other factors involved. But these are the numbers. Let's add them all together. So in a nutshell, inflation adjusted, Intel's down to 6.99 billion. AMD's up to 3.55 in the gaming division. And NVIDIA is down to 1.82. Revenue. So quarter over quarter, adding all these three together, inflation adjusted, this whole gaming industry is down 24.1%. So that's the explanation. Hopefully we got into the groove halfway through the live stream, and we're looking at a terrible number of negative 24.1%. So that's what I've calculated here when I looked at all these numbers, just brainstorming, going over them all, digging deep into the numbers. The whole tech industry is down a whopping 24.1%. This is your gaming numbers. Now, so if you're a PC reseller and you're doing it pretty tough, if you're one of those PC resellers and you're like, man, PCs aren't moving like they used to, this is because this 24.1% number, it's huge. It's a big number to stomach. That is a tech recession. Any way you look at it, that's a massive, massive recession. And even if you keep going down, say -2% next year, -3%, that's still negative territory. Added on with inflation, it could be even worse. So that's why when we talk about these things, I wanted to give you guys the real news, the real juicy numbers, and just tell you guys that what might look really good is actually not so good. And so when I was looking at these numbers in depth and I was adding in the inflation, doing all the calculations, I was like, holy moly, these don't look good. Now, the server industry, right? The compute center, all these, like Nvidia's had massive growth there. They've had growth in the automotive industry. AMD's had growth and they've taken it from Intel. Intel actually dropped off because I guess their older products weren't competitive to Ryzen and Epic. But ultimately, I believe that's going to slow down a lot. As the economy slows down, where's all this money going to come from for all this extra acquisition of tech? So I believe the gaming numbers are more instant, right? If you're a gamer, you don't have to go out and pre-book a CPU a year in advance. You know, like I've never heard a gamer go out and say, okay guys, next year I'm going to get my $1,000 PC at July 12th in 2023. No gamer's ever said that. I've never heard a gamer say that. Usually people save up the money. They're like, all right, I'm going to go buy a gaming PC in the next week, maybe even buy it today or tomorrow. So there's your biggest difference, right? If you look at the gaming numbers, they're very good to draw on to see where the industry is going. Yeah. I mean, Yusuf, you're in chat there. On that document showed, I'm pretty sure Intel was up in the Mobileye. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, automotive's up. Same with Nvidia. If we look, we'll go back to those numbers a little bit, but basically we're looking at the gamers. That's what I focused on when I crunched all these numbers. I was focusing on all the gaming numbers where this tech channel is dedicated towards GPUs and all that good stuff. And so what we saw there is that gamer is instant. They're instant and they're reactive and they go and buy stuff straight away. But they also, on the other side of the fence, when they stop buying stuff, it's going to be felt immediately. And that's what you've seen on these balance sheets. Or sorry, these Q2 earnings. Balance sheets is very different. We didn't see the balance sheets. We saw on their cash flows that they had to, essentially they dropped off a lot in certain areas. And so that's instant. That's from the gamer. Now, I believe in a year's time, you're going to see, which when we look at the data center group and the server industry, especially these massive orders from these companies, they take a while to eventuate. They don't just come overnight. You don't just go call up NVIDIA and go, yep, I want a heap of your new massive GPU. I forgot what's the name of those GPUs, if you guys let us know in chat. But they don't call up AMD and go, yep, guys, we want some epic CPUs tomorrow. We're just coming in and buying them. You kind of have to book that stuff, and it's more drawn out in its time period. But I believe from next quarter on, those data center and client group numbers are going to be on the way down. Automotive is a different game in itself. I believe there's a lot of innovation going on with the GPU compute in automotive industry, right? If we look at, say, Teslas, and you guys are saying in the comments, all these cars are going to not just electric vehicles, but they're going to adding in all these fancy features like AI and AI driving and auto driving. And so that'll be on the way up. That is innovative in itself. There's definitely going to be a demand for that. So when you see things like Mobileye, NVIDIA's automotive figures, they're on the way up. That is a growing industry. But if we look at gaming, that's sort of peaked out. That's on the way down. Minus 24.1%. That's huge. The NVIDIA and AMD and Intel right now, they may even get to the stage where they're having a collaboration meeting, a special one-off, and they're like, look, guys, we better all meet here and let's put a proposal towards Papa Powell, Jerome Powell at the US Federal Reserve. Let's just say, guys, Papa Powell, please turn the money printers back on. That's what you're probably going to start seeing from a lot of these companies, because what we saw was a crack up boom in 2021. But now what we're seeing is the exact reverse. And here it is, when we look at those 24.1% numbers, that is the exact reverse there. So huge drawdown there. But before we move on now, we're going to move on to some talking about inflation here, also the layoffs in the tech industry as well, which were already starting. And now when I read some of these articles about EK water blocks, they were reporting sales were dropping off October 2021. But let's quickly segue here. If you guys want a get Windows activated for as little as $21, but then you use that coupon code BFTYC, you're going to save 35%. You can get this for $15. Links in description below. Then we go on to the Juicy microphone, Corsair channel sponsor here. If you want to get into streaming, getting into sort of adding Paint Shop onto web browsers and then sort of thumbling in your live streams, you can do that for as little as $94. Have some good audio on your live streams. This is the Wave 1. The Wave 3 kind of looks like it's gone up to $150. So I'd kind of prefer going with the Wave 1. The differences between these two is one has a headphone out and a little dial there for your volume and a hot mute. The other's just raw microphone. Still features those inbuilt pop filters and same things that you would get on the Wave 3. Though, let's have a look here. Inflation, catastrophic news. And now this in a nutshell is going to be what you're going to see out of the... This is what you're going to start seeing out of the news here, right? This inflation number came out. And in more normal times, an annual inflation figure... Sorry, my phone's buzzing. An annual inflation figure of 8.5% would be catastrophic news. Right now, it might be greeted with sighs of relief. No. Let's just take that back a second, because this is the kind of crap you're going to start seeing in the so-called news, right? This is the kind of crap you're going to start seeing here where, okay, I don't know. Man, this Paint Shop app's really doing it for me, eh? There we go. We got the brush tool there. Just brush it off. This right here is not news. This is just like, hey guys, it went down from terrible to terrible, but that's good. That's basically how you're going to frame that. If we reword this, sighs of relief, like, oh my God, it's not going up anymore. Like, this isn't going up anymore. Sighs of relief. When I saw the 8.5% figure, I'm like, wow, it's terrible. It's still bad. If this 9.1% figure in the USA, if this went down to 8.5%, then it's not a sigh of relief. Basically, if it went down to 5%, it'd be a welcome figure. Okay, they're really getting inflation under control, guys. 9.1% down to 5%. Who knows? Maybe goes down to 4%, 3% from there. That's a sigh of relief. Going from 9.1% in the terrible spectrum to remaining in the terrible spectrum of 8.5% is really bad news. Coupled in with the fact that you got the interest rates on the way up. You've got layoffs in the industry. This is essentially stagflation right now. So analyzing these numbers and what it means for the tech industry, let's have a look. EK Waterblocks, 25% of their workforce. That was laid off in April, but it seems like the rest of the industry is following suit here. Asus, NZXT, laying off companies. Tech layoffs in 2022. In America alone, in the tech segment, they've laid off 37,000 workers. Now, I did hear reports, I think Gamers Nexus reported that he heard that EVGA were laying off people as well. I couldn't find any information on that, but there is looks like there's a lot of layoffs coming into the industry here. Like, if you guys like this kind of information, I mean, for me personally, it's one of those things where I like to talk about it because no one's talking about it, where if you're not talking about these things, then who's going to be aware of what's going on in the industry? Now we've talked about the negatives. We're going to talk about the positives right now, where all these companies, right, as they lay off people, as layoffs begin, this is where we're going to get onto the good news and then we'll move on to chat, right? As these layoffs happen, as companies earn less money, it forces them to compete. This is the best thing that's going to come out of this. Well, I shouldn't say it's like, actually it's probably the best thing that's going to come out of this tech recession is that the companies start competing. They start not being involved in the easy money. They start, a lot of these companies would have been sitting back and just living it up. And I know they were. Last year, I know a lot of these companies in the industry, like Asus and all this stuff, they were just sitting back. They were loving life, absolutely loving it, because the industry was so easy. There was just all this printed money, stimmy checks, one after the other. People were just going out buying stuff because money wasn't a problem. But now the money's become a problem. It's forced these companies to make tough decisions. And what are those tough decisions? Well, they're going to have to get more competitive for a start. If we look at, say for instance, if we go back down to And looking at these margins again, one thing I'm really surprised is AMD has managed to overtake. They've managed to overtake Intel and NVIDIA in margins, where I believe Intel and NVIDIA used to be around, you can see it right here, 60%. They used to be around 60%, over 60%. Now NVIDIA's down to 43.7%. That's a drop off. AMD is up to, their margins are now up to 48%. So they're leading the race. AMD is leading the race here with 48% margins. So technically, AMD is doing the best out of these three companies. Margins are really everything. If your margins are higher, you've got room to work with there. You've got a more profitable product. Perhaps you've even got a more efficient business. Intel's margins, I believe they were down to the 30% mark, where they were doing absolutely terrible. Intel's numbers. And see, the thing is about all these balance sheet numbers is they're all over the place, but the gross margin here, let's look at the GAAP numbers. 43.2%. There it is right there. That's the numbers we want to focus on. So overall, they're doing the worst out of all the three companies, where they were once upon a time used to being in the 60% number. Now they're down to 43. Same with NVIDIA. They're down to 43 as well. And then AMD's up to 48%. So margins are down. And what this means is that, what are we seeing with Intel? Finally, we're starting to see them pull ahead with their competition. They're starting to really get competitive, especially in the CPU space. Their next generation, Raptor Lake, that's going to bring even more gains. And so we're going to start seeing, as an industry, year on year, all these gains. And you're going to be like, what's going on here? Graphics cards, they're going to be giving out more FPS, and even more FPS for the dollar, at least inflation adjusted, once these margins start coming down. So this is the good thing that's going to come out of this. Companies are finally going to be forced to really compete for your dollar. So when you turn off the printers, when you stop the stimmy checks, when you have people start working for their money, that means it's going to flow through the rest of the economy all the way up to the top, where Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA are going to have to also work for your money. So that's what's going to happen here, as long as they leave these printers off. And hopefully, I've been an advocate of leaving the printers off. That's where I stand personally on the issue. When the Federal Reserve, they start mowing down the printers. J-Pow, we'll pull up the J-Pow meme for you guys. The J-Pow meme. When they start doing this, and basically when these printers come to a stop, this is what happens. You start seeing competition again. So here it is here. This is the meme, right? So when the printers get turned off, the competition ramps up. You get better products in the long run. So now we're finally going to see a much more heavier competition in the space of tech. So if you guys have been waiting for gains, you're going to get it. So whether it's a GPU, a CPU, the next few years should be very exciting watching to see these guys compete. But is it a good thing? I mean, well, no, we should have never have got here in the first place. We should have never have had so much money printed in the first place that led to the massive amounts of distortions in the markets. So, but yeah, we'll move over now, guys, to Q&A for you guys. And this is where the juicy stuff begins. So let's move over to all your questions. If you've got groundbreaking questions that you need answered, then drop them down and we'll discuss in the live stream. So here we go. Tech City, what about the billions of dollars the US government is giving to Intel for the fabs? Yeah, so this is actually a good... I actually wanted to talk on this. This is essentially, again, wasting your taxpayer dollars. What incentive does Intel have to compete if the government's giving them money? It's the dumbest thing you could ever do. Oh, but we're bringing manufacturing back to the US. The process in itself, if the US isn't ready to harbor Intel, AMD or Intel for their fabs, then they're not ready. They're not competitive as a nation to do that yet. So what you've got to do is make the core foundation of the country competitive to the point where Intel wants to build a foundry there with their own money. Basically printing up money and then they're having the Federal Reserve pay for it, because if the Federal Reserve's not paying for it, well, how's it going to get paid for? That's why people are sort of predicting that the printers will start up again, because how is all these policies going to get paid for? Because there's not enough tax dollars. Essentially, if you guys have looked at the government's budget deficit, and how they have to raise new money via creation of bonds, issuing bonds to the market, the taxpayers can't pay for that. The taxpayers are already overburdened. They can't raise taxes anymore because it's just going to nerf business. So what we've seen is this policy on bringing Intel's fabs to America. I think it's one of the, and have the government pay for it is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. So that's just my opinion on that. It's a socialist policy at the end of the day. And yeah, we can see throughout history how well socialism works. I mean, sure, having some things, like some very minor aspects of society, bringing in socialism for those aspects, where naturally humans don't want to pay for, but you have to have it. Like say, for instance, the police. You have to have police. So having a socialist aspect of policing the country is a good thing. There's some things that you leave to government and they should be doing, but then there's other things that the government should just not get involved with. And I mean, government getting involved with the semiconductor market, I mean, what does the government know about computers? So there you go right there. That's that question in the genre there. So most of the money is tax breaks and financing, not tax money. Well, if the government's paying for it, then it is your tax money, whether you like it or not. So someone's got to pay for it one way or another, either directly or indirectly. And so, yeah. So there it is right there. So they can and will raise more taxes more. How the hell do you think society started? Well, society started from innovation from the private sector. There was actually, society started without, I mean, all the tough times is when governments overextended overreach. So, yeah, I mean, they can't raise taxes anymore. Are you challenging them? Yeah, so plus 87,000 tax agents will solve everything. Yeah, so that's what's going on right now. Get ready for some of the toughest times you guys will ever experience in your lives, especially versus the last 2 decades. Will the banking crisis in China affect GPU prices as well? Yes, definitely. Basically what's going on in China right now, guys, if you didn't know, is there's apparently a lot of it censored too. You can't even talk about it on YouTube, or at least show video clips of it. A lot of people are trying to get their money out, and the small and medium-sized banks are starting to refuse people their deposits. They're starting to refuse them from withdrawing their money. And so what happens there is if you're refusing someone from depositing their money, the bank doesn't have your money. So yeah, China has the potential to become a massive contagion. And I've been talking about this actually. I'm more serious in today's live stream. I'm more serious, and it's more serious because the data is out there, right? Analyzing this data from these 3 Q2 results should show you it's actually a serious game. Where we've been talking about this in previous live streams about, you know, what's to come sort of thing. Now, I think later on this year, there's going to be some mass catastrophe, some financial catastrophe, and it's essentially going to bring in the what I'm going to be calling the margin call catastrophe. And so that's when, from there, you have a lot of assets essentially being forced to come back to where they are. And the assets, when that happens, their values drop. And so essentially that can be a contagion. That's why we say it's a contagion, because it runs through the whole industry, where banks start to have what's known as bank runs, and it's a bankruptcy after bankruptcy. So anyway, we got here, Tech City, wouldn't it be better to get energy more cheaper rather than giving grants to get businesses relying on government? Oh, do we want to go down the energy avenue? Yeah, you guys, you know what? Last time we did a live stream, you guys loved it when we sort of ventured off a little bit from tech and we started talking about different things. Let's go on to energy. So basically, the best form of energy as we know it is uranium, right? Uranium versus coal versus gas. Let's just take a look at this comparison. I believe it is... uranium is just all over the world. In fact, it's an unlimited supply of uranium when you factor in the ocean. So we'll move over and show you guys what the real deal is about. Once you start understanding the system and how like cooked up it is, and how much BS there is for instance, Australia should be all on nuclear power. There's no reason why we shouldn't be on pretty much near 100% nuclear power. Uranium, if you guys didn't know, for every 1 gram of uranium, that's equal to, I'm trying to pull up the figures. Here it is here, nuclear energy. So once you start picturing how good nuclear power is versus all the others, so there it is right there. A uranium fuel pellet the size of your finger can produce as much energy as 1 ton of coal or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. Picture that. You've got something that you can see right here in front of you, the tip of my finger. Then you've got something that'll fill up a whole massive truck for coal, and then 17,000 cubic feet for natural gas. That's the power comparison. So that's basically uranium is, as we know it as humans, is the bridge. Until we can get to even better forms of power, uranium is the only solution right now. So when you talk about governments, and what they're doing, why is there still so much coal being burned? Now, in the case of Japan, I get it, right? Japan had Fukushima. They had massive disasters. But if you look at Australia, there's virtually no natural disasters that would cause a nuclear power plant, as long as you placed it in the right locations, to be in any sort of danger. So there's no reason why Australia shouldn't be pretty much all on uranium, since we're uranium rich. So the fact that these are and you're going to see now, basically, you're going to see how inefficient coal is and gas versus uranium. You're going to see all these governments scratching their head, and they're going to have, oh, well, how do we reduce our emissions? Well, we've got to go with nuclear energy because it's the only way. And so once you realize, and now you start to look at the governments and how they've restricted and they've put all these regulations on the private sector from making all these things happen. Whether it's new nuclear reactors, they've put restrictions on it. The private sector can't do this. It's just flat out it's not possible. And then you realize, okay, well, what's going to happen? Well, we've got to drop emissions, so we can't burn as much coal, which means that you can't use as much power, which means that your standard of living is going to drop. And that's all it is. Plain and simple. So once you realize that, again, fingertip versus a whole truck full of coal, once you look at that comparison, you'll realize how efficient nuclear power is versus the other three or the other two. So it is the most efficient. And so, yeah. And why Australia? I don't know about other nations, but why, for the love of God, Australia isn't already on much more dependent on nuclear power is just, it's mind-boggling. It's baffling. It really does baffle the human brain. But when you look at, the quality of politicians in Australia, you'll start to understand why, right? They all just sit there on the chairs, collecting your tax dollars and sitting back and then just being like, yeah, that seems pretty good. That seems like a good idea. Let's put more restrictions on nuclear power and tax more people on the coal. And then what you've got now is the problem from mismanagement of an economy. So anyway, I'm glad you guys could listen to that. That was a little bit of a rant. So that was a little bit of a rant there. But as it is, uranium is the bridge, I guess, essentially. So anyhow, tech-related question here. 750 Canadian dollars. And we've got here, he's got two 8GB DDR5 sticks, an Aorus Lite ITX motherboard, 12600K, or just buy a used 10900 or 11700 and stay on LGA 1200. Well, if you're already on LGA 1200, yeah, I would just stay on that and buy a 11700. Considering you're not, it doesn't sound like you're doing anything crazy there. Usually those sort of things, I just recommend utilizing what you've got. Tech City Australia has laws in place to stop from using nuclear energy. Yeah, so I didn't really research that, but I just hazard a guess as to why it is. So once you spoke about the quality of politicians, I merely summed up the video. Yeah, guys, just as we're doing live chat here, just make sure you hit that thumbs up. And it's kind of like I want to get back to doing all having the laughs, doing the lols. But I don't see anyone else analyzing these Q2 results out there. I don't see anyone else giving you guys the numbers. So I guess I got to do it. You know what I mean? It has to be done. We got to sort of sail through these murky waters together month by month. Can you do another episode of Xeons? It seems to be the Xeon 2689 are $25. Okay. Hello, and hello from El Salvador. Well, hello there. We'll check out what's on AliExpress with a 20. Basically, yeah, what you're going to see with anything in general, you're going to see to the point where I think I wanted to talk about this as well, where new products, once we start getting these innovations flowing through again, and once innovation really starts flowing hard like it used to, you're going to see the used market actually become less attractive, believe it or not, because those base core line shipping costs and things like that are there. It's going to be much better to buy new if we get much more competition. I mean, the reason why, when we really break it down, the reason why $26.89, $12, so $14 with shipping. It's not even $25, my man. It's even cheaper than that. So this is basically one of the cheapest, cheapest sort of value budget-friendly CPUs you can get. This would be the Sandy Bridge, is it not? I mean, you could still play games on this, but again, it's all about getting the motherboard. So I would recommend going with something like this if you've got a cheap motherboard lying around. Where can you get a cheap LGA 2011? I don't know. For me personally, it was the dumpster. That was the only place I could find 2011 cheap, because usually they go on eBay for quite a mint. So if you do come into the motherboards, then yes, that is definitely an option. But you can see here, even brand new, the options are still $70. So if you're going to spend that on the motherboard, you may as well start to look at i3 10100F and things like that for $60. So that's kind of where the used market is going. The used market existed mainly because the new market was just offering such terrible value for money. And you could see that as we looked at those Q2 results. NVIDIA and Intel were used to making over 60% margins. They were on easy street. And then AMD came in with Ryzen, definitely disrupted the whole market. But now, even from here on in, you're going to be seeing more and more innovation, which is going to be a good thing. It's going to come out of all this. So that's the beauty of going forward. The bad, of course, is that we're going to have to weather the storm, right? People are going to be doing it tough, and they're not going to be able to go out and afford to go buy 3090 Ti's today. So we'll get back to this Q&A. We'll keep talking, and we're going to spin it off in a positive direction right here. Positive direction. Will there be much innovation? Can there be much? I think we're going to keep seeing longer and longer times between each upgrade. No, and this comes back to the cannibalization thing. If we looked at what AMD just did to Intel, right? This is the first quarter where AMD really dug into Intel's market share. And none of them really talk about it in depth as to what happened, but AMD cannibalized Intel. That's what happened. Really, that's what happened. They cannibalized Intel. Intel's not going to sit there and take that nicely. They're not going to go, okay, come on AMD, have another bite. Come and eat me all up. No, Intel's really now, they're like, whoa guys, we got to start bringing out the big guns. We got to start going Duke Nukem on AMD. Otherwise, they're gonna fail to exist, right? So you're gonna start seeing Intel really respond now, and there will be innovation. There has to be. And if there's not, well then they're gonna keep getting cannibalized. But what you're gonna start seeing now is big brain power is gonna actually come out. And so that's what happens in a competitive environment. You're gonna start seeing, right? For instance, if my views start dropping off, TechYes's views start dropping off, you're gonna start seeing me get more competitive, me looking for a different edge. And kind of like, that's what I've been looking at personally, is I've been branching off into tech and finance mixed together, because I feel like if you look at all the other YouTube channels, for example, the traditional, okay, budget gaming PC, this is the build, and this is what you can get for your money, it's sort of dropped off a bit, right? So I've had to innovate with my content. I've had to start dropping you guys new content and start doing things a little bit different around TechYes City in order to survive. The benefit of that is you guys get better content. You guys are now watching longer. So can we have a finance channel? That way the algo gives it best performance. Yeah, I've made a promise. If the Japanese yen starts getting stronger later this year, then I'll give you guys a finance channel, because again, once we started going into that, deep into that financial wave and started connecting all the dots, then if what I think is right about the monetary system is right, then the Japanese yen should soar later this year. And if it does, then I'll give you guys a video. and I'll let you know what's happening. What is crack-a-lacking with the finance channel, dedicated finance channel. Other than that, we'll keep focusing on tech, of course. We've got heaps of juicy content to get through, but I wanted to give you guys a different sort of live stream reporting on these numbers. And that was, Tech Yes Finance. What do you reckon? That's the channel name. But I wanted to give you guys a different look at these numbers instead of just seeing the, oh my God, AMD's up 70%, the whole tech industry's fine. So, Yes Financial, that'll be the channel name. Who knows? So we got a donation here of £1, no question attached. Okay, damn, you got to attach a question. So Tech Yes City, I have a very small form factor PC rig, 2060 Ryzen 5 2600 or Intel, Ryzen 5 2600. I don't know where to go from here in the coming months or even year. Economic situation. So this is the thing, right? This is Emmanuel. This gets asked time and time again. When should I upgrade? If you're asking if you need to upgrade, you probably don't need to upgrade. Always hold off for an upgrade until the last minute, right? Because tech itself isn't an investment, right? You're going to look at your old Pentium 4s. They're worthless now, right? So as time goes on, tech gets cheaper for what you've got. So going forward, you want to wait for that sort of hard-hitting, low-margin value product. I believe that's going to come out with a 13600K. I believe Intel is really going to bring it out with that CPU. They're going to have to bring it out. Maybe you might want to upgrade from your 2600. But in terms of your RTX 2060, again, stay tuned this month. You'll be getting a good graphics card deal, like a really good deal. The Ethereum merge is apparently official now for next month. So September 15 is the date, I believe, September 15 or 16. That's another huge thing. We'll be reporting on that here at Tech Yes City if that does happen. Because if that happens, essentially that was the one of the many catalysts that will bring the flood of crypto mining GPUs to the market. So stay tuned for that one. I mean, you're already starting to see some of these crypto miner companies start boosting up these other cryptocurrencies on the back of themselves, trying to sort of create that system again. But again, the outlook at the moment, as the printers remain off, is that you're going to see a drop off in asset values and also tech and also discretionary items. So yeah, the RTX 2060 is a good card, but your CPU, maybe you might want to upgrade that depending on what comes out around the corner. You can even get some good money for your Ryzen 5 2600 and ITX motherboard, the B450 ITX. So yeah, just wait, a couple of months, so that's it. So will 32 gigabytes of RAM be the minimum for average use in 3 years? 16 gigabytes is usually the go-to right now. 32, yeah, probably will come into effect. I mean, that's pretty obvious to me, I think. I mean, considering if you just game, right? I mean, I usually have a few applications open. If I'm playing a game, I'll be watching a bit of YouTube and have some other tabs popping open and doing a few other things. So I would absolutely need 32 gigabytes of RAM for me personally. So yeah. Anyway, what do we got? More questions coming in. Do you think the 7950X will be reaching 5.7 gigahertz stock? Ugh. Single core? Like, I mean, possibly, right? Possibly. Single core, possibly, but you'd be looking at like you'd be looking at the best of the best, and that's the best silicon. That's what you'd be looking at. So should I upgrade my Ryzen 1? Ryzen 1, guys, just a dual core or like a single core. Ryzen 3 3100 to something like a 5500, or go Intel with an i3 12100F running a RX 6600. I'd go 5500. You've already got the stuff there, my man. You've already got it there. So Ryzen 5 5500 goes perfectly with a RX 6600, and you get access to smart access memory too. So that's the benefit. And that actually does work pretty well. So that's what I'd be going with. The 3100, yeah, it's a good upgrade actually, in my opinion. And a lot of people crap on the 5500, but you can sell that 3100 and you've basically got like maybe a $50 upgrade or something like that. Dirt cheap. That's a dirt cheap upgrade. No hassles. Just update your BIOS before you do it. So Tech City, how old is too old when it comes to security patched on your cell phone? My last patch was July 2021. Does it really matter? If yes, how much? I'm not really a smartphone channel. Me personally, I've got this on Android 11. I don't want to update it to Android 12. And the reason being is because I use a program called FLIR when I use the temperature. And when I use those temperatures, the IR camera, it doesn't work with Android 12 apparently. So I've actually been leaving my phone sort of unupdated. So I think the main thing with security is don't go to dodgy websites. Don't click on those links. When those links tell you about, oh my God, you won't believe what Elon Musk just did. It's like, you just got to say to yourself, I don't care what Elon Musk just did. If it's that big, I'll probably hear it on the news, or someone else will probably tell me about it. Not some phishing website that's going to, eventually try and lure me into a security loophole. So yeah, that's the one thing you got to be careful of. Don't click on crap and you'll be fine. That's the security on your PC, your smartphone, whatever it is. Don't click on garbage. I mean, look, when you see a garbage can and you see some garbage, do you go and touch it like unnecessarily? No. So why go and touch garbage online? It's the same kind of concept here, guys. Don't touch the garbage and your security is going to be fine. But seriously, Marco asked, but seriously, what did Elon Musk do? I don't know. Someone else will have to tell us. We got a donation of £5 all the way from England. Should I buy an RX 6600 for my birthday, or should I wait a little longer for GPU prices to drop? I'm in the UK right now and they're going for £250. RX 6600, because it's the RX 6600, it's not bad. Like, it's the one card I'm recommending at the moment because it's good value. At £250, it's pretty good value. Like, it's a decent card. It's gonna make you really happy. In terms of where it can come down to, it could go down to £200 next month. It could go down more. But again, it's gonna reach a level where it gets, if these graphics cards get stupidly cheap, people are going to come out from the woodworks and buy them up, because that's what happens when anything goes for and that's what we're waiting on. Essentially later next month is where that's like the golden spot for where GPUs will bottom out in price. I feel that's when they'll bottom out. It's basically when all those mining cards flood the market. There's going to be a lot of people looking for those deals. They're going to say, okay, what can I get it for brand new? What can I get an RX 6600 for brand new? $250. Well, if a miner wants to sell his RX 6600, they're going to have to sell it for $180, $190. And so that is going to be a great golden age. And that in itself may bring down the RX 6600 prices more, but how much more they'll come down from $250, I don't know. So it all depends. If interest rates go up again, which they're predicted to go up again, and they actually start doing more quantitative tightening, if they actually start reducing the balance sheet, the Federal Reserve is going to be pretty, people don't realize that I think we're only at the start of this recession. You know things are really bad when they're changing the definition of the word recession. You've got minus 24.1% figures in the gaming sector, and then you've got, in America, I think they added on 87,000 IRS agents. 87,000. They doubled up on the amount of people trying to collect tax. So there it is. And so you can let the start of fiat collapsing fix it for you. Yeah, it could be the start of fiat collapsing, or it could be another Great Depression. You just don't know yet. It all depends on the Federal Reserve and the money printers. That's all. Are they going to keep on printing up money? And mainly, if you guys I've been watching a lot of different financial channels. There's one channel where I think the person's, their name, I don't know if they've got their own channel directly, but I see them a lot. Lynn Alden. Her name's Lynn Alden. And she's really if you guys want to know how the whole monetary system, at least get the best idea about how it works, go watch up her research on it all. It's brilliant. She's pretty much hit the nail on the head, I believe, with how it works. People will go to Jeff Snyder, but I believe Jeff Snyder's incorrect in that he sort of says, governments don't create inflation. No, governments do create a lot of inflation. I believe Lynn Alden's right in that quantitative easing itself doesn't cause inflation, but it can if it's basically done in coordination with governments. And that's what you saw in the COVID 2020, the money printers were firing up from the governments using that quantitative easing cheap source, and they were flooding the markets with money. And then what did you see with Milton Friedman, with his observations of inflation? You saw 18 months down the track, prices started going up, exactly how they predicted it. So not only that, you had pressures added on from people just going out, borrowing, pushing up real estate prices. All that came to a head, but all that is debt, right? All that is debt based. So if you leave the printers off, all other things considered, you leave those printers off now, we will get into disinflation and eventually deflation. But are they going to leave the printers off? People are really doubtful that they are. People, like I for one, am a bit of a skeptic. Are they actually going to leave the printers off this time? Can you write it down, her name, so I can check? I think it's Lynn Alden. I'll put it in chat. I think that's how you spell it. So really good. You guys should go watch. That's like, out of all the people who explains the monetary system, brilliant analysis and how they explain it. So that's sort of like where I sort of agree. Like if you sort of apply just bring down the logic hammer, then that's where I think my thoughts align a lot with what Lynn Alden says. So how does quantitative easing not innately cause inflation even if governments are not involved? Well, because it's just the bazooka, right? Like it's like the toy bazooka. I call quantitative easing the toy bazooka. It's the threat of inflation, right? Just because they put the base money up, they say, look, we're pumping all this money into the banking system. You've then got to have people actualizing those loans to put them on the balance sheet, the ledger, on real money that comes in the economy. Right, you can have $1 trillion in the banking system, but if it's not getting out there into the real world, then there's going to be no inflation, essentially in itself, caused by quantitative easing, if that makes any sense. But if you look at the governments then taking that money and then printing out stimmy checks, putting up all these, look at the unemployment. Look at all these stimmy programs, unemployment benefits, and all this stuff. It was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it. So that was what happened. You just had mass inflation caused by the governments. So there it is there. Anyhow, I've got a Ryzen 5. We'll quickly change it back now. I got a Ryzen 5 3600 and GTX 1080. I think it's almost time to upgrade? Yeah, almost time. Wait for those bargains. It's almost time to upgrade. It's getting pretty good. So is channel a snob-rich channel? So is a channel a snob-rich channel? I don't understand that. Is a channel a snob-rich channel? What's the question there? Do you think Intel should abandon ARC? That's actually a really good question there. No, because they've come this far. If they abandon ARC, if Intel does abandon ARC after all this time, they're really that's going to be one of the biggest write-offs in history in terms of wasted money. So they've come this far. And they've got the products ready, but yeah, it's like, do they just abandon it? Do they say, okay, are we going to give up, or are they going to persevere? I mean, ultimately that one's going to come down to the board of directors and the shareholders. I think the shareholders are going to say, what are we going to do here? There's going to be some serious analysis on that, where it could be a possibility that Intel does abandon it, but you don't know. You don't know right there. So that one's, I mean, yeah, I don't know if they will, but should they? I don't think they should. I mean, they've gone this far in, but of course it's very expensive. And going forward, I mean, they've come all this way, and now it's like GPU sales are dropping off big time. Even if they get their act right, they're going to have to compete with some of the lowest margins. So it's a very big uphill battle for Intel. They know that. AMD and NVIDIA actually do have the market positioned to a T, where they're just hitting golf balls every day, all day. They're hitting those big, 300-yard balls. So I'd say no, they shouldn't abandon, but that's, it's ultimately going to come down to the shareholders and the board of directors, and what do they think. the majority voting on shares. So we got here a $20 donation from Dehoy featuring "Love Your Channel." I've got an 8700K and a 1080 Ti playing at 1440p. Debating upgrading something, but I'll probably wait for a 4000, 7000 series rather than current gen. Thoughts? Yeah, that's what I'd be doing too. So because you got the 8700K, that was a very good CPU in its own right. 1080 Ti, you'll be able to sell that whole system. I'd just palm the system off in the used market, put some RGB in it, get rid of the system, get yourself something brand new, 13600K RTX 4080 or whatever AMD brings out, 7800, RX 7800. Definitely wait to see what AMD's got this generation in terms of GPUs. I do predict that AMD is going to maybe come out on top this generation with their GPUs in terms of raw rasterization. So then you analyze, okay, do you like the NVIDIA features? Do you do work on your computer, like video editing and stuff like that? Then maybe go with the NVIDIA card, or if you're going to play raw gaming, then the AMD card will probably deliver more than it's ever delivered in the 7000 series. Take Your City, when do you see DDR5 having a noticeable performance difference from high-speed DDR4? I'm going to give it another year. Again, let that competition sink into the markets, where today we talked about Intel, AMD, NVIDIA. We talked about those three companies, but there's all these other companies. This is why it's good to get some broad-based figures. Crucial's margins, they're on the way down. Samsung's margins for their memory is going to be on the way down. Margins are going to be on the way down. These companies are going to have to compete for your money as well. So in other words, DDR5 memory in the next year is going to get a lot better, not just in terms of pricing, but in terms of speeds too. So competition is going to apply to that as well. So I give it another year. DDR5 should get really good. I have an X570 Carbon Fiber Pro motherboard, a 6900X, and an RX 6800X GPU on a 850 EVGA SU, Lisa. Will I have problems upgrading with the new graphics cards? 850 watt? No, you shouldn't. Generally, when you hear these 800 watt figures on these new graphics cards, I don't believe they're going to release a flagship card that needs 800 watts. Like, that's going to be, I believe, for the data centers and whatever. That's going to be for compute centers, not for the average consumer. You're not going to see NVIDIA selling an 800 watt TDP card. And the reason for that is because mainly the RMAs, right? If one of these cards get knocked out, that's a huge cost to the board vendors. The board partners are going to be like, guys, we don't want to sell these cards because if they go bust and there's problems, it's going to cost them so much to fix it. So you start to get into that realm of, okay, 800 watt power draw is going to be very crazy. It's too crazy for ordinary PC gaming. And all the manufacturers are going to, like, I wouldn't buy an 800 watt TDP card. Just putting that out there. So I'd be looking at 400 watts, and in that case, your 850 watt is still going to be fine. So especially since it's a good one. 6900 XT on a 750 watt platinum, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just picked up an X299 board for $50, new meta. Well, it's a meta if you can continually pick them up for $50. Getting an X299 for $50 is definitely a score. And but since there's a single X299 board, I don't think you're going to be picking much of those up in general. But nice score regardless. So we've got here, hi, you mentioned Japan yen value could increase. Why is that? Because overall, the Japanese have loaned out a lot of Japanese yen internationally. So you could call it the yen, whatever, yen Aussie dollar system, the yen, they call it the euro dollar. You call it the euro yen system. And basically the euro yen system has a much more amount of debt owed to Japan than I believe the US dollar does. And so what happens with that is once banks start collapsing, they have to pay back these debts to the Japanese hedge funds and banks. And when that happens, you can see the violent nature of the yen. When it starts soaring, if you go back to 2008, you'll see how the yen just soared beyond anyone's expectations. I remember watching it too. I remember watching it firsthand. And I was super happy at the time because I was earning money in Japanese yen. And you're just watching the yen just catapult. It was just like insane. In one, I remember in a split second, the yen rose 100 pips. And I remember seeing that and I was like, wow, that's the power of how much credit is owed, or how much debt is owed to Japan, and how much credit they have as a nation. So Japan's very, like, don't underestimate Japan and don't underestimate the yen. And when you look at people telling you, when you look at these news articles, oh, the yen's just it's gonna collapse and all this, it's like, well, yeah, if the yen collapses, everything else is gonna start going down with it too. So all their margin calls, man, they're gonna have to come back in one way or another. So we got another £5 donation. Sorry guys, some donations here. I'll answer the questions. Do you have a Discord server, and if so, where would it be? I'll drop that link in after we close down the live stream. Just stick around, I'll drop that in for you. And then we also got the Intel should do what AMD did with Vega and first gen Navi. Just release a low-end card and iterate instead of abandoning what you build. Yeah, completely agree with that comment. Really good comment there. And thanks for that donation. I completely agree. That's what I was saying. They should try and capitalize on the fact that NVIDIA and AMD aren't focusing on the low end of the market right now. NVIDIA and AMD are just ignoring it because their profit margins aren't there. They're still focusing on shareholders. But Intel should say, okay, guys, this is a real good way for us to get into the market, get our drivers established, and start owning that, like, entry-level scene. They can really do that. They have the potential to do it. Of course, whether they want to take a hit doing that is up to Intel, right? The margins are going to be very low if they decide to do that, profit margins, but there is a way to do that. And AMD, that was one of the best GPU launches when the RX 570, RX 580, 470, 480, that kept AMD relevant in the GPU space. That was one of, actually in hindsight, it was one of my favorite launches from AMD. I mean, but then of course the crypto miners just kept, like, woo, they kept going to town. Like, they kept having a field day with those cards. So if you're in the market for a used RX 470, 480, 580, 570, I'd be very weary of those cards. So they're the sort of cards I probably wouldn't buy in the next mining bust once all those cards start flooding the market. But what if the Fed keeps raising rates? Seems like the yen will slide even more. Same for euro. Yeah, so if the Fed keeps raising the rates, again, back to those balance sheets, things are going to break. As long as the Fed just keeps raising rates, things are going to break. So if you've got a bank in China that then can't pay dollars and they got yen on their balance sheet, that goes under, then guess what happens? You still got to pay back yen. The yen's going to get stronger. So it's you got to look at who's got real credit versus debt. And the one thing that's misunderstood about Japan is that during the 80s and 90s especially, they seeded out I can't use the word for a better term, but they seeded out an F load of money to the rest of the world. So, and that's what you're seeing with the new trajectory of the yen versus other currencies. And not to mention the yen's an absolute bargain now anyway. Like, I fitted out a whole studio here for, like, chips on the dollar. So, or pennies on the dollar. I have a 5600X 3070 Ti and a B550E 32GB Trident Z. What would my upgrade path be, you think? Usually upgrade annually because I make money off my old parts which pay for my next upgrade. Your upgrade path, man, that would be like 2 years at least. Get 2 years out of that. That's a really nice system. It depends if you need the upgrade. Like, are you wanting to find, say, a used OLED, a 4K OLED on the market? In that case, your 5600X is going to be fine. So it'd just be a matter of a GPU upgrade. So, yeah, in terms of your upgrade path with that, you don't know what's coming out. You're like looking at 14th gen from Intel and AMD's 8000 series, and then maybe a 5000 series GPU or something like that. So you're actually well geared. Your system's new essentially. Have you shifted to Japan? No, I'm thinking day to day here, guys. Ultimately, I want to get a visa where I'm in Japan and Australia, so I'm in both countries. Like, I really love being with my son. And speaking of that, he's actually finishing up playing with his friends soon, so I got to get back to spending some time with him. But yeah, it's been great being in Japan, and of course, I love Australia. I've got my family there as well, so it's kind of like it's a bit of a half and half there. So there it is. Anyway, monitors, great recommendation, but I also have to upgrade my girls' build. There you go. So I'm looking for a 75 1080p monitor. Can I get advice? Yeah, get the cheapest one that you can find. Generally, they're all going to be very similar, 75 hertz panels. How about a Taiwan Visa instead at Tech Yes City? I mean, like, I don't want to be like, you know, there's always that part in the back of my head, Marco. I mean, personally, I love Taiwan, but I just wouldn't want to live there at the moment, given the tensions between a particular country and I mean, Marco, let me know this in chat. In the back of your mind, if you got like a protocol ready just to race out, go buy a ticket to Canada, and like, you know how to do that, right? Like you hear news on like, oh my God, there's a missile coming our way. Straight away, get the plane ticket, jump on a plane. I love you, Taiwan, but see you later. You know, situation is chill. Yeah, I mean, I've just been like in Japan. They said on the news the other day, like missiles were hitting the Japanese sea. Like, I'm just like, what is going on at the moment? Like, it's really bad. They didn't report it. I don't know if they reported it on Australian news, but yeah, like there was missiles dropping in the sea in Japan from China. So, okay. George Lucas is stinking 4.5 billion Disney rich. What? Okay, guys. Like, where's this chat going now? Do you mean Taiwan East and Taiwan West? I don't know, man. I don't know a whole lot about Taiwan, guys. But let's keep it back to tech. So, but we'll basically, yeah, I've got to get moving soon. So if you guys have any final questions, anything you really want to ask, drop it in chat. But in terms of the numbers that were reported here today, we'll quickly sum it up for you guys. We had here terrible numbers coming out of Intel, AMD. Oh, sorry, not AMD. Terrible numbers coming out of Intel and NVIDIA. And then looking at AMD's numbers, their margins were the best out of all three companies. But AMD's numbers were still in the gaming division, right? After we seclude those numbers, we had AMD's numbers in general for their gaming segment plus 16.26%. Inflation adjusted, right? That's real growth. So that's growth that I believe they mainly took away from Intel and not so much NVIDIA. Like NVIDIA was the graphics cards. It's actually funny because they would have taken a lot more away from Intel because that's where a lot of their growth would have been driven. Because they actually report here that somewhere along these lines, I read it in these notes, that the GPUs, they were like, oh, GPUs were kind of not doing too well. And it was like, okay, yeah, here we go. Partially offset. So there it is there. Gaming segment revenue was 1.7 billion, up 32% year over year, driven by higher semi-custom product sales, partially offset by a decline in gaming graphics revenue. So they had a decline in their gaming graphics cards as well. So they saw a similar effect to NVIDIA. So the gaming graphics cards were in decline, but at least AMD's responding now. They're responding hard to that. So that's basically summing it up in a nutshell. We had the inflation numbers. They're still terrible. Don't like what you're seeing on the news now is like this right here. You're seeing this on the news. If the inflation numbers came back down to this level, right? If inflation numbers came back to here, that would be a sigh of relief. But let's have a look where inflation numbers are. They're still in the terrible segment, right? Inflation numbers are still absolutely horrible. Right there. So there it is there. Inflation's still in the terrible zone. That's not a sigh of relief at all. In fact, inflation should be lower because the printers have been turned off. Inflation's eating into people's spending. You should have seen a lot lower in terms of demand. But apparently these last inflation numbers anyway, when you look deep at the numbers, like they were offset, like rising power costs, rising food costs were offset by a drop in used vehicles. And it's like, yeah, you can't eat a used vehicle, right? You can't plug your used vehicle into your home and let it give you warmth and create heat. It would be very expensive to do it. I mean, maybe you could do it, but basically what we're looking at, inflation numbers are still absolutely horrible. Don't read these titles. You want the inflation at least getting back down to these numbers. You want them in these numbers. I mean, this is where you want inflation, 0%. That's where you want it. That's what's best for business right here. Keeping inflation at nothing. So I can say, hey, I got $300. This year it bought me a 6-core CPU. Next year it can buy me another 6-core CPU or something like that. Not, okay, this year we had a 6-core CPU for $200. Next year it's $400. So I can't eat my Volkswagen. No, you can't. You can try. Let me know how it goes. Could you... Oh, sorry, guys. We got a donation before we get on out of here, too. So we got here, could you recommend a good CPU all-in-one? My eyes on the Meg S360, but I have reservations due to the price. Ooh, I mean, I usually don't like to talk ill of bad of brands. We'll close this out. Final thing, MSI all-in-ones. I had a friend in Australia. He basically nearly went out of business because he sold all these computers with MSI all-in-ones in them, and they all failed within like 6 months. Every single one of these MSI all-in-ones failed. And I was just like, whoa, what happened? And so I forgot the model number exactly, but he essentially, as a company selling gaming PCs, he had to adhere to those warranties and had to warranty those computers. So the people just wanted their money back. They wanted their money back on these water coolers. So that was for me personally, after I heard that, I would stay away from anything MSI for their water coolers. That's just me personally. I'd stay away from their water coolers. Don't touch them. Me personally, I've used Corsair water coolers for years, and they've never let me down. I've had a hose bust on one of my Corsair water coolers, but that was because I do my tech yes loving thing, and I manhandle the shit out of parts sometimes. This one got a little too heavily manhandled. It was a used Corsair water cooler, by the way, but in general, me getting a Corsair water cooler out of the box, putting it on a CPU and a build, selling the build or using the build personally, I've never had a problem with Corsair water coolers. So that would be my go-to. Would be a Corsair Platinum, the H150s. So yeah, that's a bit. Then again, they are really good. Deepcool, I don't know about Deepcool had some problems with mounting issues, but now Deepcool are really good. Cooler Master have gotten pretty good as well. So there's a few good, but for me, after hearing that story with MSI and how they didn't step in either to help the guy's business out, I was really upset because this guy literally had to return all these people their money because of MSI and their crappy water coolers. So that was one thing. I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but this is the first time you've asked me directly about all-in-ones. So I'll give you guys an honest answer. Canadian $5 donation. Thank you, brother. Oh, there's also... okay, so sorry if I'm missing questions. I remember last time I missed some donation questions. Sorry about that, but I won't miss them now. 10400F CPU new for $115 Canadian or 12400F for $245. I'd need a new motherboard either way. Or should I go with a Ryzen 5 5600 at $270? Damn, the CPUs are expensive in Canada, my man. Hey, because there's such a big price differential, I would ask, what graphics card are you getting? It all comes down to your graphics card. Say, for instance, you're going with an RX 6600, just build the whole system out with a 10400F. It'll be absolutely fine and save some money. But you've got to also find a cheap motherboard too. So look at a cheap B560 or H410. If you can get them significantly cheaper than the B660, go the 10400F route. So also the Starforge thing as well. Let's close off the live stream talking about Starforge Systems. I gotta, to be honest, I gained so much respect for these guys after they just sent me an email. They were just really polite. They sent me an email. They said, look, thanks for the criticisms. And that's they just said, because I didn't insult their brand. I didn't insult them at all. I didn't do any insulting in that video. And I think that's how I'm going to keep my critiquing videos on the channel, right? I'm not going to throw shade at anyone. But they really took that criticism on the chin, and now they've got a better product, at least from their website, from what I'm seeing. They're trying to do better. And that's I really hats off to them. The respect is there. And again, would my opinion change? Build your own computers. You're going to be saving a lot of money. Build your own computers. You're still going to be saving a lot of money. But if you had to go buy a pre-built, I've got to still hear, for me personally, I've got to hear reports of people getting the PCs, what they're like, what's the workmanship like, but might not, Starforge Systems might be coming into not a bad play. That's all. So I really respected them just sending me an email straight out and going, okay, thanks for the criticism, man. We've taken it on the chin, And I was just like, wow, okay. So I updated the video, put an update in there, made a tweet about it. So yeah, thanks Marco. Marco's getting rid of those. It's one thing that baffles me. 2 years on, and YouTube still can't fix these bots. Like, how does it even, like, I don't know. Like, how does YouTube even allow those names? Love chat, you know, like, how does it even do that? Like, how does it allow that crap to come through? YouTube, fix your chat system. There's something wrong there. Yeah, we got Haywood Jablomi. No, I wouldn't. Canadian $2, RX 6800 XT, i5 8400, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 4K monitor. Looks good, man. Looks good. I think you just wanted to donate some money so I could read your name out on chat. That's what Haywood did there. Shampoo time. Just got the notification that you're live now. Oh, really? That's a really late notification, man. Wow, we've been live streaming for quite a while. We've been live streaming. Actually, I can tell you, we've been live streaming for an hour and a half now. Damn. I was actually going to close this one up pretty soon because we've discussed all the talking points you guys have wanted to chat about. So I was like, okay. But of course, it's been a juicy stream. And we'll get back to a little bit more. What power supply do you recommend for RX 6600? A really solid 450 watt will do it. Like, I recently did a build with a 450 watt, and the whole build's using up a little bit over. The whole build's using up around, I think, 215 watts, and then you undervolt it gets really big after, like really good after that, 160 watts. So RX 6600 is a really good power efficient GPU, and it's not gimped either. Stay with us a little more. Crying emoji. Ugh. Okay, let me just check I gotta check the time. I gotta be mindful of the time. I can stay a little bit longer. Let's ask those questions. I'll comfort you guys. We can all go down this economic downturn ship together. Is my 7700 non-K still viable? Actually, that's a video we've got coming up very soon. You'll be delighted to know that I have done the tests against the 12100F and also a 12900K just to see the differences there. And the i7 7700, I mean, it'll still get up and boogie, but I just don't think anyone should be looking at the CPU in terms of buying it off the used market. But the i7 7700, it's one CPU that I just came into recently off the used market. Before that, I've never come into it for like 3 years. The reason I haven't bought that CPU or that motherboard platform is it's always been overpriced relative to everything else. Are gaming laptops popular in Japan versus gaming desktops? I would say gaming desktops are actually more popular in Japan than gaming laptops. It's weird, hey, like you'd think laptops would be more popular in Japan, but I think someone going with a laptop in Japan is actually more inclined to go with a Nintendo Switch or something. So usually that's what happens in Japan. There's like console gamers will go for the Switch or maybe PlayStation 5 or whatever, but the desktop market would be doing a lot better in comparison. Where I know in Australia, for instance, there was a big craze on gaming laptops. America also had a bit of a wave with gaming laptops, mainly due to the cryptocurrency mining GPUs making it a better thing. So have I seen Morbius? The movie, the one at the cinemas, that I thought it was like the actual screenplay was good, but like the actual movie's plot was so small, like it's the size of a peanut. You could like explain Morbius. I don't know, there's one on Netflix, isn't there? There's one on Netflix that's actual series. I've got to check that out, but I think in terms of the one that came out at the cinemas, that was terrible. The plot was like so small for that one. Like yeah, the size of that's the smallest plot I've ever seen of a movie. You know, I'm not going to ruin it if you haven't seen it, but you could explain the whole movie in one sentence. I thought the 12400 was simply an underclocked 12600. So 12600 has those mini cores as well. Yes, 12600 does have 12600K is a really good CPU. It's got the E cores, it's got the better silicon. It's also got, in the case of the K, it's got the UHD 770 graphics. Brian, how is your son liking his new PC? Just bought my son a new Xbox Series X for his birthday. He loves it. Congratulations. Yeah, my son loves his PC, man. He's been getting into Minecraft a bit. We've been getting some mods done for him. I actually want to learn how to play Minecraft so I can play it with him. Even though I've never sort of been the type to play Minecraft, it looks like it could be a lot of fun. Maybe the PvP. So what will pricing be like for 4090? Same recommended retail price as 3090 on launch. Yeah, so I've predicted the 4090 will be $2,000. But again, we've seen the market for $2,000 GPUs just really isn't there. So I think initially you're going to see a $2,000 price point on the 4090, but then it's going to drop after that. And it's going to drop quite quickly because the actual market for 4090 buyers at $2,000 will be quite low. There'll be the initial run, people will have to get it. They'll want to get the latest and greatest. But I think you'll see it drop off. And then maybe 3 months time, it'll be $1,600 or whatnot. So how much longer is the stream? Australian time messed me up. Still want to donate. Oh, thanks, Jasper, with a $5 Canadian donation. You guys just want to keep me around now with donations. I mean, it'll kind of work to a point. I do have to go like pretty soon. So just keep that in mind. So HRK25, Croatian Kuna strikes again. RX 6700 10 gig test when? I've actually got to get one. Let's check for you guys live. Can you get an RX? Can you get a RX 6700 in Japan? I mean, the problem is at this stage is there's so many used cars that we know that are going to hit the market, and coupled in the fact that now there it is there. Okay, it actually is for sale in Japan, and the price again, like if you're looking at this, the price is the exact same. As a 65800 MAN, the price is exactly the same as a 6700 XT in Japan. So, like, who's going to be buying this card? No one. Most popular card right now is a 3060 Ti at around a little under 500 US. 1660 Super, 3060, 6500 XT's moved up the mark. Wow, I don't know how the 60... I guess the Japanese just want a cheap card. That's moved up the ranks. Maybe perhaps someone shouted out the 6500 XT in Japan, had a momentary bump in sales. But yeah, in terms of the 6700 in Japan, I mean, at this price, I just refuse to buy it. So, I mean, if it's coming in at a better price in America, then it would be a good pick. So, RX 6700 10 gig. And it's not for sale. But this isn't too bad a price right here. 429, like, I mean, I was liking it when the 6700 XT is coming down under that $400 mark. People have been linking me, telling me 6700 XT's coming in. But as far as the 6700, yeah, it's coming out pretty late in the cycle when we know new stuff is around the corner. So maybe AMD's just trying to make one last buzz. But in terms of like the reality, like, even if I bought this card and did a review on it, the real reality of it is who's going to be buying it when it's not for sale at a decent price on these marketplaces. So that's another thing as well. Like, for instance, let's take another final example we'll give you guys before we move back. Let's take a look in Japan, even at the GTX 1630. Like a lot of people, like I was going to do a video as well, like making a review, just bashing on the GTX 1630. Like, hey guys, terrible card, terrible price performance. But then you look at the price, it's, you know, here in Japan, it's 2 MAN. So you see it's 2 MAN, like that's, you know, 20,000 yen. And then you look at a GTX 1650, and I guarantee you'll pick them up for around the same price. So like, why would you buy a 1630 when you can get a 1650? So it sort of baffles me as to, and I guess, you know, even then you'd probably just buy an RX 6500 XT if you're that desperate for that price point. But in America, let's have a look. GTX 1630. It's not even for sale. Like, wow, that's how bad of a card it is. It's not even for sale. So it's sort of that example. I'd like to see them out in the market first, and then when people can actually buy them, then we can maybe look at it. So we got here another $5 donation. If everything was double the price, what would you buy? What, if anything, released in the last 2 years was off limit? Only Turing, Error, plus double price. So you're throwing me in a curveball here on the live stream. Like, Brian, if you had to buy and everything was double the price, it would be like, the thing is, like, are we taking into account mining boom as well? Like, are we talking, let's deflate the mining prices? Because I would probably then get a 1660 Super if, like, we're talking about MSRPs and we had to buy a GPU at double MSRP. It'd be like a 1660 Super, and then I'd be very salty about that if I had to buy 1660 Super, call it a day, and then maybe like a 10100F. That way, the total amount that you're spending, you can go buy something else, like go buy a hamburger, go buy a Ronald McDonald hat, and then go buy one of those red noses, and then start, playing on your gaming PC like a clown that you spent double your money. Change your shipping address to a US zip code. Okay, yeah, I do have a Beverly Hills address here. Yeah, so we will get back to that. Now we're in Beverly Hills 90212. Not 90. I remember 90210, but let's have a GTX 1630 in Beverly Hills. $180. Okay, $160 for a GTX 1630. That's the cheapest on Amazon. Now we look at GTX 1650. It's $20 more. Fair, okay, so it's $20 more, but even then, I'd still get the 1650. So, like, I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Maybe even click on that. You might see there might even be a used one that pops up. Sometimes if you go to Amazon, you can see the used deals, new and used. You can actually get some really good deals on those side tabs sometimes. So let's have a look. Nah, there's only new cards for sale. Everyone probably on Amazon US snipes it. In Japan, you can actually get some really good deals on used stuff. Like, I bought a used table that was basically brand new. They say the condition, and I got it for like half price. And so sometimes you can check those used deals on Amazon, and they have them. It's actually a good little tip for you guys. Always check the used prices and see what's going there. So yeah, the GTX 16. Yeah, I just remember 90210. So we got designs by our in chat. It's going good, brother. We're just sort of like having a relaxed chat session now. Come join in. Come ask some questions. People were like, Brian, you got to stay around for a little bit longer. So I'm staying around for a little bit longer because people didn't get notifications. And again, YouTube just seems to love, pummeling Tech Yes City. One left after right. Here, Brian, you woke up today. Your channel was doing well yesterday. Here's a big right to the face. I'm used to it, guys. I guess that's why certain channels end up going down these niches, because you're like, hey, YouTube, don't give me a beating if I start doing mainstream content. Please, YouTube, don't beat me up. And then the YouTube brings Jake Paul with his boxing gloves on. YouTube. Is it weird that I don't care about the 40 series? I'll stick with my 3080 or get a 3080 Ti and not care. A lot of people are getting to that stage, especially when you look at the games that are coming out. When you look at the games that are coming out, right? A lot of people are still playing Apex Legends. A lot of people are still playing Dota 2. I play Dota 2. It's probably the biggest game that I play. When you're playing all these games and the new games that are coming out, no one's really playing them. I saw some people playing this cat game. I mean, how long will that last for? People play the cat game. It's got no replayability. It'll probably drop off. And it's like, that's not going to be selling new cards. You have to have a new World of Warcraft. You have to have a new Apex Legends. You have to have games that are like really addictive, dare I say the word, but they've also got really good graphics engines involved. And that's what's going to make you want to get a 40 series. So yeah, there's no real new games that have come out that are like, wow, I've got to play this game. For me personally, these new games are not coming out. I'm like, wow, I've got to go and play that. I actually enjoyed watching other people play that Stray game. I was just sitting back. I was like, okay, let's see what this game's about. It's fun, but it looked like I enjoyed just watching someone play it quickly and then like double speed. And I was like, okay, lucky, thank I didn't buy that game. I saved myself some money. So like that, you know what I mean? So I lived vicariously through another person playing that game, doing a playthrough. So I saved myself some money there. But you know, new World of Warcraft, where is it, right? Where is it? So there can't be a new World of Warcraft. There could be another World of Warcraft, but there's not. There's not going to be, I think, because of the way people just want to make battle royales now. But when World of Warcraft first hit the scene, you needed a good GPU to play it. It made, you know, when it came out, you needed a good GPU to play World of Warcraft, and the better GPU you had, the better the graphics you could push. And so I remember pushing 1080p World of Warcraft back in the day with max settings. It would tank any GPU. It was like, whoa, this is insane. This is crazy. And so that kept the industry going, right? People wanted to go out and buy new GPUs every year just to play WoW with higher FPS and higher graphics settings, until WoW just became a potato, until they gave up on WoW. So that's the story of, like, basically, yeah, probably why you don't really want to upgrade. RX 6700 is €410 in Germany, while RX 6600 XT is $390. Okay, I'd get the RX 6700 in Germany then. That's a better deal. So there you go. I guess it depends, yeah. Have you heard of this game called War Thunder? Got to check it out. No one's told me about it until you now. Thanks for letting me know about War Thunder. The good old days of WoW, exactly. Corey remembers. People remember World of Warcraft. Like, that was PC gaming to a T. World of Warcraft was so big. And in fact, that's where I've argued in the past where Nvidia started to gain their mind share or their market share. Nvidia really started to gain a heap of their market share from World of Warcraft. And ever since then, they haven't slowed down. And I guess AMD, if AMD's out there, they might want to make a game that's sort of really good on AMD, that's a really new hit. So Raid Shadow Legends is where it's at. Oh, man. that meme will never die. So War Thunder's visuals are pretty nice. Okay, have to go check it out. That means it looks like it's a pretty good game. It's a freemium army game. Okay, so it's a free game. Its graphics are good. I like it. Sounds good. I'll have to get into it. Which one should I do first? A motherboard B350. The B350 should be good, man. Haven't they recently started updating a lot of the BIOSes on the B350s? If you can get a B350 with an RX 5500, it's going to be a great little combo. So you can keep going with that. So, yeah, don't be afraid to keep going with that. Anyhow. But yeah, guys, I think I have to get out of here very soon. So I have to get out of here very soon. I do apologize. But last question, is the 6700 XT a good deal at MSRP? It's okay. It's not a great deal. The best deal is the GPUs that are coming under MSRP, grossly under MSRP. So RX 6600, $250. That's the deal at the moment in terms of the graphics. In terms of buying brand new, we'll close off this stream with my favorite deal in the new graphics card scene, because it's just there. It's there. It's like, it's almost there, readily available. Just, you know, this is a good model too. Like, the thing is too, when you buy the cheapest graphics card out there on the market, usually you're getting a pretty crap, like, cooler. This card here is really good. This XFX. This is a nice card on the RX 6600. So that's like the go-to new card at the moment, coming under MSRP. Solid deal. You can't go wrong there. So there you go, guys. That's the card to get. Anything else, it's got to come under that MSRP. I mean, mind you, a 3090, like a 3090 coming in at $1,000. If you're a video editor, if you need something for professional space, when those real high-end cards are coming down like the levels they are, not so much for gaming in terms of price performance, but like a 3090 at like $1,000 is actually not too bad for the professional workspace. So you can, I mean, depends on what you're at. So there you go. But yeah, in terms of brand new gaming graphics cards, RX 6600 is where it's at. In terms of RX 6700 XT at MSRP, I'd like to see it cheaper. So when it starts getting into like the, you know, $400 range, like $390 and stuff like that, it's actually a pretty good deal too. So what is an example of Japanese culture you admire? Something we could learn from or imitate? Besides, oh, I'm not going to say that on... Why do you refer to like the, you know, grabbing a thing and putting it in yourself? Like, I don't like... and hard work. So the thing I admire about Japanese culture, right? The one thing I really like, okay? So I don't admire like the two things you talked about, like Japanese hard work isn't exactly hard work sometimes. Like, I used to work at a high school in Japan, if you guys didn't know. And it was like, for them, a lot of it was long hours rather than hard work. So I'd go in there, I'd just go do all my work, clock off at my time, and I'd go home and like I did all my work. A lot of people there would just sleep on their lunch break, sleep in their spare period, stick around at the school, move like a snail's pace. And a lot of people would call that hard work in Japan because they'd stay there till 10 p.m. But so that's sort of like a blurry lines. The Japanese can work very hard, but at the same time, there's a bit of a misconception there with, long hours versus hard work. Two completely different things. Japanese, yes, they work long hours. That's very true. And in terms of the seppuku, we're not going to go there. That's not really, no one does seppuku nowadays. It was an old school Japanese thing where, it was an honor thing. They used to do that, and then the other guy would come in afterwards. I don't know if you guys know, but there's actually a 2-part series to seppuku. There's one guy does it himself, then afterwards the other guy saves him hours of pain and finishes the job. That's what it is there. So, but in terms of what I admire about Japan, what I admire most about Japan is everyone's honest, like in general, like the honesty, and it comes back with the safety aspect. This is the best thing about Japan. Like no one's like, if you drop your wallet and lose your wallet, there's actually a really high chance you can go to your local police station and they'll have your wallet with all the cash in there and all your credit cards in your ID. If I drop my wallet in Australia, it's gone. I'm never seeing that thing again. It's same with my smartphone. If I drop my smartphone in Japan, it's gone. So the safety, you can go outside 2 a.m., go down to the convenience store, not have to worry with some dude wanting to mug you, or the boys rocking up with the bottles and the baseball bats wanting to roll some poor bugger, just looking to get a feed at 2 a.m. in the morning. He's finished a long hour's work. You don't have to worry about that. In Australia, it's a danger, right? I'd say in America, it's much more of a danger. I'd never walk anywhere in America at 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's, when I... but... okay, some parts in the USA are a lot safer. I know that. I just went to California, and in California when I was there, I would not be going out 2 a.m. in the morning. That's just the areas that we drove through, man. That's my experience with California. But in terms of I've heard really good things about Texas, Florida, other places where it's a lot safer. But yeah, California, no, man. I would not walk out there 2 a.m. in the morning. But in Japan, literally anywhere in this country, you can pretty much walk out 2 a.m. in the morning and feel safe. That's the first thing. Second thing is, back to that, everyone does the responsible thing. You don't have to worry about getting your stuff. If you drop your phone, high percentage chance that someone's going to put it into the police station or the store that you left it at, and you're going to get it back. In Australia, I know personally, every time me and my friends have lost our phones, we've never gotten them back, lost our wallets, they're gone. So that's a big differences there. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed those differences. So that will be the last close off. And hope you guys, in general, we got one more live stream coming this month. Hopefully I will announce it in advance. I'll announce this one in advance. And you thought I was screwed. No. I'm pretty good on my feet, man. I like to think that I'm pretty good on my toes. I don't get caught up. Except the start of this live stream. I did get caught up the start of this live stream because I'd never done live financial analysis with Paint Shop on a browser. So it was a little bit painful at the start of the live stream. I do apologize for that. But we got another live stream coming in this month. We're going to talk about, I think the topic for the next live stream is going to be, should you buy a used mining graphics card? Lots of misconceptions out there, or lots of things that I think people are saying that are wrong in general. Should you buy a used mining graphics card? I'm going to take you guys through all my experiences on a live stream. We'll chat about it. And sort of, we'll get to the bottom of it. I want to actually make an official video saying, hey, look, the miners were just arbitrage, man. They're just the free market plugging the problem, right? And as we all know around Tech City by now, the real problem was the central banks and governments printing all this money. So that was the real problem. The free market ended up fixing it up. And now look at graphics card prices. They're back to normal. So Anyhow, guys, we will catch you in another Tech Yes City live stream. I've been going for nearly 2 hours, I think. So is that paint tool available for Chrome? I don't know. I think it was on. I just okay, last thing we'll talk about. I just use Edge. I started using Edge and I got really used to it. It wasn't bad. It started, I actually started having a lot of problems with Chrome, especially when I was replying to YouTube comments quickly. They never occurred on Edge. So Edge actually started doing things better than Chrome. And I was like, okay, I'll just start using Edge. And it started having all the add-ons. So yeah, they've really improved it over the last few years, but now I'm just using it. So Discord, yes, I will cut off the live stream, but keep this chat window up. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment. If you stayed tuned already this far, hit the sub button, ring the bell, get the content as soon as it drops, and I'll catch you guys in another Tech City live stream soon. But I'll also drop that Discord link for you. Brian uses Edge. Unsubscribing. Opera. I mean, guys, the browsers are really good, but yeah, browsers are browsers. They're getting all pretty good now. 10 years ago, yeah, Internet Explorer sucked, Edge sucked, but now they've really stepped up their game. It's a lot better now. I haven't had any problems. So, and in fact, Chrome, I think's actually had a lot of memory leaks and a lot of problems where I haven't had the problems on Edge. So that's just my personal experience. Anyhow, guys, I'll catch you. Thanks for tuning in. Love each and every one of you. And we are going to end this Tech Yes City live stream, but I'll pop that Discord link right now for you. Also, check out the sponsors. They help keep the Tech Yes content alive. That's VIP SCD keys. And also, can you make $5 for an armpit? Yeah, I'm pretty, you want me to do the... Okay, there's your armpit sound. It wasn't that loud, so and for $5 it was worth it. And I'll catch you guys next time.